Hey, White Sox fans. It is Sox Populi podcast 198. I think the rule is when we hit 200, I get to quit. So I'm just counting down the moments to 200. This is a podcast dedicated to something you didn't think a podcast would need to be dedicated to, and that is the Rule 5 draft. The thing you always forget is happening, and then it happens, and usually the White Sox or the team you follow doesn't even make a pick. Well, this year the White Sox made two picks, but was it a net win? Not quite sure it was. We're going to talk about that. And I'm going to talk about that with my good friends, Hannah Filippo and Michelle. I'm going to call her, when she's sick, we call her Michelle. But under normal guises, her name is Melissa Sage-Bollenbach. So now, Melissa, as I've once, or I think more than once, called Crystal O'Keefe Cheryl, now you have a different name in my mind. So welcome, Michelle. Hope you're feeling well enough to get through a 30-minute podcast on the Rule 5 draft.
Well, I'm used to being called Michelle because
Oh,
I had a cousin Michelle, and my grandpa could never, he called me Michelle and her Melissa, and so we're good. I'm used to it. I will answer to that.
you know what's cool? Just on the fly, Michelle decided, okay, if Brett's going to call me a different name, I'm going to use a different voice. And I think something tells me she's going to stick with that.
Party trick,
Guys,
man.
yeah, I mean, it's
Party
pretty
trick.
good. Community theater awaits, Michelle. And Hannah Filippo, fresh off of some time down at the winter meetings. Hey, it could be podcast 199, getting me just one closer that we will devote completely on, I don't know, I think it's going to be a Q&A. I won't have much to offer except and then I'll probably just, because can't stop talking, I'll like insert some stupid anecdote about my time at the winter meetings 30 years ago and no one will care. They'll fast forward right to the interesting stuff Hannah has to say, but that's coming soon, probably pretty soon. But overall, I guess let's give a teaser, Hannah. Pretty good experience for you in getting down there and rubbing elbows with some folks I guess you've only seen on the big flat screen.
It was definitely a fangirling moment to see all those people and also realize how human they are. It was incredible to see both sides of it.
All right, something that happened during the winter meetings. Not much happened with the White Sox. Does it ever? Was the Rule 5 draft. In fact, the chunk of activity, 98% of the White Sox activity, aside from Chris Getz acting excited about his team for 2026 and hugging and planting a wet one on Harold Baines for getting the number one pick they should have gotten. And we might get to the whole lottery thing, but I think it's a little silly. And if the host thinks it's silly and he's just two away from being able to go to the retirement home, well, then you just got to sort of pay attention to that and just talk Rule 5. Um, but here's the deal up top. If you're not aware, if you didn't read Hannah Filippo's preview article about who the White Sox should protect from the Rule 5, they didn't listen. There's your little teaser. Or the results aftermath spot news piece from Michelle Sage-Bollenbach, another great piece, although perhaps a stressful experience that perhaps fueled her transformation from Melissa to Michelle. Who knows? Here's what happened. The White Sox, with the second pick, plucked from A-ball in the Boston Red Sox. Boy, the White Sox like the Red Sox. Oh, Chris gets find a new trick. Jedixson Paez. Paez. That's what I'm assuming, right? Jedixson Paez. Tell me if I'm wrong, or don't tell me. Be polite. Don't tell me. And in the second round, this is like back in the day when the NBA had like, you just pick all these drafts. You used to just pick until you wanted to stop picking. The NBA teams would pick like 14 guys. There's 12 guys on the roster. They pick 14 guys. Carl Lewis, whoever, female players, nuts. Anyway, the White Sox created a second round just by saying, hey, we're going to pick once more. Nobody else did, I don't think. And they picked a guy even more obscure, also from A-ball, Alexander Alberto from the Rays system, not even ranked in the top 30 in the Rays top 30 by MLB. Okay. And in the process, sandwiched in between the two, the headline name of these three, Peyton Pallette, was selected by, oh, just not selected by a team, but selected by the Cleveland Guardians so that he can, as soon as April, haunt the White Sox. Melissa, Michelle, and Hannah, initial reactions to how this Rule 5 draft went. Again, the White Sox did not listen to you, Hannah, did not listen to me. I didn't write an article about it, but I made my thoughts clear about who they should protect. We both had the guy that they lost. And I'm guessing Melissa Michelle was also like, why are they not protecting this dude? And then he got 6 spots open. But reaction to sort of what happened with the Rule 5.
Head scratching, I
Mm.
guess, was my reaction. Mostly because, like you had mentioned, both picks, but and more importantly, the first one, which you did pronounce correctly because I like wrote it like phonetically up here, so I would say it right. Um, but the fact that neither have pitched higher than A ball, and all of us here on this podcast cover, do our minors coverage, and there is a significant
Mhm.
difference in pitching in a high A and pitching at the major league level. Like that is like a pole vault. That's not even like I'm jumping, up a couple steps. Like that is a significant jump to me when you had somebody like Peyton Pallette, who was your number two selection. It's not like this guy was a number around 14. Sorry, not number two, but round two. It wasn't like this guy was a round 14 guy. I mean, he was a round two guy who literally could slot in pretty much immediately. And I know we were all head scratching last year as we're covering the minors that there were several times where he could have been promoted to
Mhm.
Chicago and wasn't. So like we're missing something. And what that something is, I don't know. Like I was really being kind of sick today and just doing laundry. I was like scouring the web to like, is there some like obscure thing when he was in college? Like he got, put on probation or something. Like I don't know. I was just looking for anything to kind of like make sense of why in this rebuilding time you would take a guy who could jump in and help you out and get you to that competitive time frame and take flyers on guys who have such a huge jump to make, and they have to make it. Like they have to stick. If they don't, they have to go
Yeah.
back. So whereas you could have put Peyton, if he
Mhm.
came up and helped you and didn't work out, you could have put him back in Charlotte. So you guys help me out because I'm utterly confused, not just because I can't smell or breathe or think, but
Right.
because of this whole situation.
This is the way I feel all the time, Melissa Michelle. So, I mean, welcome to my world, not being able to grasp anything about anything. Before we get to Hannah, just some background on Palat, drafted as a starter, didn't work out as a starter for the White Sox. He had, I want to say he missed a full, I think TGS. He had a significant arm injury. Uh, I think before he got to the White Sox. Anyway, should have done some research, right? But transitioned pretty well, pretty smoothly to the bullpen, which a lot of guys are asked to do, but it doesn't always work out that well. It didn't really miss a beat. And even going into last year, you would have said maybe Addison Coffey's in there, Eric Adler's in there. He's playing for Team USA. At worst, you'd think Peyton Pallette was maybe your third ranked reliever going into the season, a guy that very easily, as you pointed out, Michelle, uh, could have played in the majors last year. The risk, of course, protecting him is if you want to put him back down again, you are exposing him to waivers. Teams don't have to pay the $100,000 even. So he could get plucked. So you don't want to be over aggressive. I do understand. Not that I'm going to have any sympathy for Chris Getz. I do understand why you're not going to just fill up your roster at all times, although some teams I think do it. Um, but yeah, as really, especially after 2025, he's I think pretty clearly the next guy up. So I think it's an indication of what the White Sox must think about their minor league relief corps, at least upper minors, because he was your guy, and if you thought you were going to sneak him through without a chance, oh, that's foolish. Hannah, beyond head scratching, what was it for you?
So risky move. And the risk started out with not protecting Pellet and then drafting two guys again who haven't reached AAA yet on paper is a red flag at first. And I would like to, have after seeing a little bit behind the scenes, I would love to say that I am fully confident that the reason that they picked these two guys who haven't reached AAA yet is because there's something that matches up with their pitch arsenal or their development potential that aligns really well with Zach Bove and Brian Bannister's abilities to develop players. I'd love to have that faith, but I need to see it first.
Yeah.
And that is my main concern, is that especially with Anthony Kay signing too, the Sox really want to gamble this offseason, and I personally don't think it's the time to gamble yet.
I mean, okay, it's $100,000. They could have it back if they send the guy back. Okay, so big deal. Well, big deal, Jerry Ransdorf, I'm sure. Don't want to spend Jerry's money, but okay, 100 grand, who cares? Yeah, go for it. Take a risk, sure. But two guys. This isn't even last year where first they have the number one. They couldn't get that number one pick stolen from them, so had the number one pick in the draft. Shane Smith was, I think, pretty much understood to be a guy who was going to go first, one, two, three, probably first. So the White Sox did the sensible thing and said, "Yeah, okay, we'll take that guy. Thanks, Milwaukee. Thanks for having so much depth. Worked out great." Gets smart enough in his crazy, hey, look, combing the waiver wire, sees Mike Vassell, realizes he's coming from organizations you might want to snatch players from, that being Tampa and by way of Philadelphia, or Philadelphia by the way of Tampa. Worked out really well too. Those guys were on the cusp they were basically major leaguers already. The idea that you're picking up two guys from A ball, even if you did have this five of like, it was Brian Bannister's favorite player, you have to pick him, Chris Getz. Or there's something I saw that made me, they played out six versions of MLB 2026, the advanced game, and in each one of them, both of these guys just crushed it, and they got co-rookie of the year. The risk is little because, okay, at worst they're out $100,000 total, and they get their two roster spots back. Okay, go for it. But the idea that you're doing two, I mean, I think we know going in, there's no way that's going to happen. There's no way two guys from A ball are going to be on the major league roster all year, and it's very unlikely either one is even going to break camp on the roster, to flirt with the idea that they might stay on. So that's what makes this strange. You're not even doing a strange combo where you're getting, a AAA guy or even a bat and a pitcher. Um, these rosters aren't 40 men active. They're 26 players, and the White Sox use them all. They can't play Teal and Carroll at the same time because you don't have another catcher or whatever. So there's no spaces to burn. They don't have a bunch of guys who play 162 games, so you don't really need a deep bench. So there's no wiggle room. It's head scratching is a good way to put it. Uh, what do either of you sense just the odds are that either of these guys stick? The Alberto thing, I'm completely baffled by because I guess was there a 2% chance he outpitches the far more glistening prospect in Paez, who, to be fair, killed it. He probably slots in our rankings about where Peyton was. So I mean, he's not nothing. It's still a jump. How is he going to make it? And then you got another guy. I'm just puzzled. Do you think either one of these guys, A, break camp with the team, B, can last the season with the team so the White Sox get to keep them?
I don't. I just don't see how it's gonna work. Like I don't, I mean, who- I mean, you look at who we have in terms of our pen. I mean, I guess we don't have a lot of people. So could the Paez make it out of the two? I think he has more of a shot to make it because I think his stuff is a little bit better. Um, his control is really what I guess everybody's so high on. Like he's like a crazy amount of control. So could they? could he? I suppose, but I don't see it. I don't see him lasting very long. Like I see him just getting lit up because how do you not? Like, I mean, I'm just thinking about us, when we're writing up the minor league games and things like that. And the guys, who start out really well in A ball or high A ball and they're doing really good. And then like they get promoted to Birmingham and they get just completely obliterated because it's, the level of offense at double A is just crazy good. So I'm like, I mean, there's just nothing to even like look at other than his stuff to say that the same thing is just not going to happen to him. So I would say he has maybe a chance, but if he does, he's not going to last long because I think that's with real hitting, he's just going to get killed. I don't know how he can't. So
Yeah, I would say Paz is the best bet of the two. I would agree that I think that it's going to end one of two ways. Either the Sox will not, the Sox will keep him around because they want to give him as best of chance as possible and potentially set him back developmentally because they've rushed him through, or they will end up he will end up going back to Boston. I don't think it ends positively though.
Yeah.
It's going to end negatively for at least one of the sides.
Yeah. The way this plays out is the way the bonus baby circumstances worked in the 50s, I guess even into the 60s before the draft, where if you signed a guy to a certain amount of contract, usually an extremely young guy, bonus baby, you had to keep him on the roster, I think, for 2 years. And in most cases, you'd see those guys after 2 years. The second those 2 years were up, they're in the minors, not even always AAA, because they did need more time. And, I guess they just tried to bring a guy along and pitch him a little bit. 50s and 60s, there were no relief pitchers, there were no closers, whatever. Guys pitched every game, or exaggerating, but you could afford perhaps to carry something like that. Unless the White Sox are going to employ 10 of 13 starting pitchers on their staff, and the guys who aren't good enough to start are just going to be eating up innings as relievers, guys, in other words, who have the stamina to pitch a ton. And that could be a plan. I don't think that's the plan. I don't I don't have five starters for a rotation, but if somehow they're going to make a run, they're going to just Chris Getz is going to go to Korea and like bring back six guys. That you can't stash even one guy like that. You can't protect any players. I mean, the White Sox, the good news is the White Sox, we're used to the White Sox having injured players out for a week, therefore reducing the size of the realistic roster to 25 or 24. So the players are used to having to deal with that, but I don't think for a full season are you going to be able to pull that off. On a lark, just sort of like going for it. I mean, I get it, and certainly Paez is. I mean, that's a lottery ticket again from A ball. Goodness, that's you're really going to have to cross your fingers really, really tight. It could happen. Hey, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and I'm going to issue well, not cautionary tale, but I don't know, an example from 2022 that I think parallels our current situation. We'll see how that plays out. Oh my gosh, the intrigue for podcast 198. I know you're on the edge of your seats, everyone out there watching and listening. We're going to give a chance, going to give Michelle a chance to, I don't know, plop, plop, fizz, fizz, or do a little nose spray. Hannah is going to just take more notes for her future front office position. And I don't know, I'm going to just listen to the organ grinder monkey in my head. But I promise all three of us will be back in a minute or two, so hang with us. Okay, White Sox fans, as promised, we're back. It's Sox Populi, Mothership Podcast number 198. Yes, it's exhausting even to read the title. Rule 5 Draft is what it is. My name is Brett Ballantini. I'm lucky enough to be joined by Michelle Sage-Bollenbach in her new guise for this podcast, one time only. Let's hope so. And Hannah Filippo, fresh from Florida. She's alive. She survived Florida. I'm not sure what the odds were. I don't think they were 100%, but she's back, healthy, happy, despite being a Sox fan, so happy with the asterisk that we all carry with us. As teased, let's talk about the last pre-Vassal. Well, technically, he doesn't count Rule 5 pick, but not the White Sox Rule 5 pick. Smith era. In 2022, the White Sox made what seemed like a pretty astute pick, Nick Avila from the San Francisco Giants. And this guy, see, look, I'm doing research on the fly. This guy crushed it and was left unprotected and unpredicted. He pitched in AAA in the Giants system. He was 14 and 0 as a reliever. Okay, a fluke, but he was 14 and 0. Had 3 ERA, 12.92 WHIP. Yeah, okay, whatever. Maybe walked guys a little too much. Very unhittable. In other words, what you might consider an ideal, a very Shane Smith-esque, an ideal guy to make the jump from a more loaded team, which I presume San Francisco was at the time. They weren't the White Sox, so let's just say more loaded, to a team where there are opportunities and had put up numbers that were pretty robust. Um, um, the White Sox, he obviously didn't, he never played a game for the White Sox. I think the stats I just threw out there were what he did after the White Sox returned him. So that's how angry he was at not getting to be in the major leagues. That said, my point still stands. This is a similar, my stupid point still stands. And that is, this is a jump that was in the ballpark of, now that I'm going to just try to revise myself. Hey, can we redo this podcast? A guy who was really killing it, seemed like someone you might take a flyer on and could stick. And he did not even stick through spring training. It's not like you get less money if you get rid of the guy after a week. You get rid of the guy 2 months into the season. That's of no bearing. You could get rid of him 2 days before the end of the season, and the whole transaction still works the same way. And he didn't work out. So Paez is younger. He has killed it at each level he's pitched at for like the 3 levels he's been at. Incredible control. A guy you think could translate into the majors, but man, is that a jump? And as Melissa Michelle has put it, I mean, we all know very well, and most of you listening and watching the game know that the jumps are incredible. The jump from pitching in Charlotte is pretty massive. Guys that the White Sox just want to bring up from Birmingham. How often does that actually click? Like never. So single A, Boston system isn't that much better than the White Sox, is it? Maybe it is. We keep taking players from the system. Anyway, okay, now that I've, I sort of blew my awesome point there. Okay, neither guy is probably going to stick with the team. So this ends up being sort of an eye wash. Is this a matter of Chris Getz just wanting to make it seem like he's doing something when he's really not doing something?
I don't know. Like I don't is listening to you talk about that, and like I in my research today, I decided to listen to Locked On Guardians and see what they had to say about it. And I do just have to share this because it's really funny.
Hmm.
They thought it was really weird that the Sox didn't protect Pallette. And the one guy said, "Why didn't the Sox do that?" And the other guy said, "Because they're bad at what they do."
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and I was like, yeah, like I don't, to me, the $100,000, the 2 risks on these guys, whatever. Like to me, that isn't really even that what bothers me, but what bothers me is the losing of Pallette, because I just feel like that is the part that doesn't make any sense. The fact that we need somebody like him that we know could do it. Like, I mean, of course you never know. Can you make that transition from Charlotte to Chicago? Like, I mean, obviously you don't know until that person gets there. But he was on that path. Like he was like the guy you just described, right? That we got from the Giants. And so to me, that's the part that doesn't make sense. And so are the Sox just doing this to just look like they're doing something? I don't know, because it just really, to me, just doesn't make any sense at all, especially with a new pitching coach coming in. Maybe, he could do something with Peyton that wasn't being done before too. So like you didn't even give it that opportunity. And I- so I don't have an answer for your question. I don't have an answer for any of it.
I'm going to let you jump in, Hannah, but here's the sick nature of baseball. And just so I can try to redeem myself, what Avila did that got the White Sox eye was pitching in double A and high A. Again, still a higher level than what Paez was doing. 114 ERA, 16 saves. Clearly a guy who had what seemed like killer closer mentality, a whip under one. You can see my go-to stats. That's how dumb I am. Whip and ERA, Brett. He's returned to San Francisco and goes 14-0. He pitches one more year in professional baseball. He does get to taste the majors for 8 games with San Francisco. He did not play in 2025. No one picked him back up. That's how cruel this game is that a guy was 14-0 in AAA. And one season later, he's no longer in baseball.
And at least you have the double A, like, because we all know, like, double A is it, that's the level, right? I mean, that's the level where, the pitching is good and the hitting is good. So at least you had a little bit of a measuring stick there of like, oh yeah, this guy could, hold some of those big time bats in double A down. Maybe that's, but again, anyway, like I don't get any of it. They're just bad at their job. They're just bad at it.
Yeah, like we need more reminders. Hannah, this will be a two-phase weigh in on Pallette, who you felt the White Sox should protect. I agreed with you. And also then maybe the White Sox get a little lucky. We both thought, I think we both thought, Shane Murphy is a guy. It's easier to maybe make these moves with relievers. Maybe. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's a little harder for a real quality Tanner McDougal to be a guy who got picked up. Yeah, of course the White Sox are like, gosh, I'm not going to embarrass myself that much. I'm going to show my hiney that much. Yes, I'm going to protect. I'm going to put Tanner on the 40 man. They left Shane exposed, and he seems like a guy who's pitched enough in the upper minors. Hasn't really missed a beat, for one season, maybe a little older, but that might even be another thing in favor of him being a guy teams take a flyer on. That's what I was worried about. I know he's not some gilded arm. He wasn't a high draft pick or what, so who cares about him? But he's a guy, I think the White Sox really dodged a bullet there. Your thoughts on those two guys who I think you want to both protected. I don't remember.
I did. So my wondering is maybe they were okay risking both of them and hoping that at least the one would not be poached, and it gives them the flexibility to bring up at least one of them and not have to share that roster time.
Because
It's
Hannah, we know
like,
they've got talent to burn. They should
yeah,
just
yeah, no kidding. Instead of, maybe they wanted to put all their eggs on one basket and hope that only they needed one of them. So
the Chicago Dodgers White Sox say, you know what? Let's just roll the dice. Um, but did Murphy? I mean, granted, there were only what were they like 14 total picks. There weren't many total picks, actually, and there never are, which makes this whole kvetching over it. I understand is a little silly, but well, guess what? The White Sox got nailed with one of the 14 guys in a system they can ill afford to lose anyone. Did Murphy surprise you at all, or you figured that like Chris Getz, no way are we going to get two guys taken?
I would love to think the latter, that no way that they'd both be taken. It makes me wonder in the back of my mind if there is something that people see in Murphy that or something that Cleveland saw in Murphy that would dissuade them from
Mhm.
him. But it's one of those things with Pella, to go back to your point, Michelle, that with Cleveland doing why Cleveland picked them and why Chicago did not protect them. These are the moves and these are the decisions that differentiate winning teams and losing teams. And I guess that's
Yeah.
all I'll say. That's how I'll put
No.
it from my
Yeah.
time at winter meetings
Yeah.
and
Target
talking to
right
people.
there.
It's very obvious who wins and who loses in the season
Yes.
because of things like this.
Yes. Hannah is speaking between the lines, but again, you didn't necessarily have to pay your fare to Orlando to know that. But yeah, getting it up close and personal just means that she has uglier snapshots of it than you and I do, Michelle. Yeah, Chris Getz is like, well, God, Brett Ballantini keeps dogging my system. How in the world did somebody get picked? I mean, geez, don't you gotta, I mean, don't you even then rally around the few guys, you haven't? I mean, let's not, glorify Peyton Pallette. He got eaten up at AAA. Granted, all arms get eaten up at Charlotte, but again, and just because he's not, I mean, you could have a lot. The White Sox catching history until last year will tell you that your number one guy is not necessarily a viable prospect whatsoever. I think the White Sox probably have a few other positions right now where that's true. So just because Pallette maybe going into the season would have been, if not breaking camp with the White Sox, number one on the reliever list coming up, doesn't that alone doesn't say, oh God, Chris Getz is the biggest idiot in the world. But that said, this is a team with a deficit everywhere, and certainly in the pen. Well, I'm sorry, all pitchers, there is a deficit. They can ill afford to lose any legitimate talent. If Cleveland wanted to pluck Reudis Diaz from a low A, what a guy like the guys like the White Sox did pick, it's like, well, okay, that's a risk, dudes, but a guy who's pitched in AAA, a guy on the short list, a guy where a smart pitching organization like Cleveland, granted, they've unleashed some ugly, ugly men out into the world through their pitching system. However, effective pitchers, oh boy, I don't like this move. I don't like this happening at all because,
It's gonna totally bite us in the behind, and
yeah,
we all know it.
yeah,
I mean, it was just like Cleveland of all people, of all
yeah,
clubs. Like
yeah,
it's gonna be our worst nightmare.
yes.
And then we're all gonna be able to take this video and send it to Getz and Company and be like,
Mhm.
what? We told you so. What were you doing?
And conversely, those of you who want to like comment on YouTube or whatever and say, "Oh my God, you guys are making such a big deal about a guy," and if it turns, hey, maybe he'll flame out in Cactus League. Maybe the White Sox will somehow remember how to hit for one game and beat the heck out of him and get him back. It'll be sort of like a wink wink deal. He'll come back and then he'll be terrible with the White Sox or something. And then in a year you can say, ha ha, you're all clowns. Oh yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, it could be. It's just you got to hedge against this stuff. Again, if it's some single A guy, if
To
it's
go.
Tanner McDougal 2 years ago or something, okay, a guy with promise, but somehow he's you'll see guys like Lacombe um,
Mhm.
come up for Rule 5, faster because he's been, treading water for a while. He finally pitched last year. He'll come up earlier if he's not already in the majors somehow. If he's still in the White Sox system, he'll come up quicker than we expect. Maybe he's a guy you take a fly around because like, oh man, he's got promise. He just hasn't had his chance. Yeah,
To
Peyton
go
Pallette.
off that point, Brett,
Hmm.
it's definitely from my time, like everybody, when you're trying to evaluate players and project their performance, everyone, you'll be wrong at some point, but the good teams are right more often than not, and that's where that is the issue with the Sox, is
Mhm.
more often than not they're wrong,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
And it's sad, Hannah, that there's not a team. I mean, even at this point, Colorado, although I'm not sure what their hiring is, but okay, there's not many teams you can go and say, oh, well, maybe okay, the Angels picked him. Well, okay, well, that confirms that we shouldn't have, protected him. But, you know, Cleveland, I mean, really almost anybody picking your guys. Oh, man. And then it's like, I mean, like the lockdown or whoever it was, those guys saying like, oh my God, rolling their eyes at the White Sox, thanks, White Sox. But yeah, I mean, just keep picking on us. Brighter days are ahead, though. Hey, speaking of, as we're about to end our podcast, I guess we should pay just a little bit of mention to the fact that the White Sox will have the number one pick in the 2026 amateur draft, which is, that's damning with faint praise, it means your team is really lousy. In fact, they're so lousy they didn't even qualify it for it in the year that they lost 121 games, and they only got the number one this year because Colorado was so bad they didn't qualify for the number one pick. But in that comedy of errors, at least something finally went right for the White Sox. The Sage-Bollenbach household seemed rather excited about the pick. Can you take us back to that emotional moment when right before Chris Getz and Harold Baines embraced?
It was really exciting. I will have to say, like, I mean, we got a dog on them when they deserve to be dogged on, but we have to celebrate too when we get these wins. I
They didn't
mean,
find a way to screw up
yeah, I mean, and
with the
that
best
that was
odds.
the ping pong balls were like,
Yeah,
yes, they went our way. And,
yeah.
being in my 50s, and you can appreciate this, Brett. I mean, I don't remember when Harold Baines was selected 1977. I mean, I was 5 years old. Like, I don't have any recollection of that. So, like, to watch that card turn over and see that it was the Rays, I mean, like, Sage screamed, I screamed, Caitlin, he came over and gave me like a big hug. I mean, it's super exciting. It can be franchise altering if we do it correctly, which I think that is like I read some quotes and stuff that have me concerned that with this large pool of money that they're now going to have, that they're considering watering down the pool so that they can make it stretch out a little bit more than shooting their shot. And I hope that that's them not showing their cards and trying to bluff their way through, because I think you will absolutely murder this fan base if
Yeah,
they truly do not. If Rock
yeah.
Chalowski is truly the number one guy and we don't shoot our shot, and that'll be
His
devastating. And I may
name's
have to go
Chalowski.
somewhere.
He's meant to be in Chicago. Hey
Yeah.
there.
Right? Yeah. I may need to go somewhere else to another fan base if that happens, but
Yeah.
it's super exciting.
Elite
So,
talent is elite talent. You have to,
yeah.
it's that, if it was that easy, the White Sox would be a good team. It's not that easy. So you better take advantage when you have it. The White Sox have squandered it, well, we've seen them squander it for decades. Interesting trivia. The year after Harold Baines was picked number one overall, the White Sox didn't have a pick in the first round. I still haven't figured out why. I don't know how they got penalized where they didn't even get a pick. I might have that wrong, but there's some trivia for you. Anyone out there who knows, harangue me in the comments for not knowing, but they didn't even get a first round pick. Anyhow, we're running out of time. Thank you, Hannah Filippo, fresh from Orlando, survived. Bless you for that. Michelle Sage-Bollenbach, we hope to see your good friend Michelle soon. We will be coming up on podcast 200 very quickly. Until then, take care, everybody.